fight on. It's time for Versus.
That's right, Mick. It is time for a fight. It's time for Versus. So it is fight time, Chris. Today's Versus, we've put two iconic Australian music programs against each other. And we'll see which one comes out on top. We're looking at Recovery from the ABC back in the mid-90s against Video Hits, been around forever and a day.
Oh, yeah. Two big shows back in the day, weren't they?
Yeah.
So Recovery was an Australian television music and youth culture program that aired on the ABC. So that's the Australian Broadcasting Corporation.
Like the BBC, the Australian version of the BBC for our international listeners.
So it only aired for 4 years between 96 and 2000, but I was surprised by that. I thought it was a little bit longer, to be honest.
I did too. I thought it went for at least maybe 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4.
I would have thought so. It was broadcast live on Saturday mornings, primarily targeting teenagers and young adults. So that's really
that was us around the time.
Yeah, it was us. We were the target market. So key features was a focus on music, of course. So the show was best known for its strong emphasis on alternative and indie music. It featured live performances, so that was a big part of the show. Music videos and interviews with local and international artists. So it's really cool. They'd come on, they'd sit down, do an interview, play some music.
And they were pretty funny. It was like funny stuff.
It was a really laid-back sort of TV program.
Yeah,
like, really laid-back.
A bit like this rubbish.
Yeah, pretty much like this. The
host,
but better, of course, but better. The hosts, over the years, it had several hosts, but most notable, of course, was Dylan Lewis. Everyone loved Dylan back in the day. He was quirky, he had an energetic style, and he became synonymous with the show. So you couldn't really... The show was Dylan, let's be honest. He made the show, I thought.
Yeah.
Segments, aside from the music, Recovery included skits, interviews, as we mentioned, and discussions on youth culture, art, film, and current social issues. It often had a chaotic and unpredictable feel to it, reflecting the live format.
Yeah.
So there was a few times I remember you'd watch it and obviously things didn't go to script.
Shit would blow up or break.
That's what made the show so cool.
You know, they'd be playing guitar and the live performance stops working.
It was pretty loose format, let's be honest. But
that made it fun.
That's what made it fun, yeah. It was really fun. And youth culture, big premise on youth culture. So the show became a cultural touchstone for young Australians in the late 90s, offering a platform for alternative voices and creative expression at a time when such spaces were limited, especially on mainstream TV. So what was the legacy of this show Recovery? So although it ended in 2000, Recovery remains fondly remembered for its authentic representation of youth subcultures and for launching or supporting many careers in the Australian music and entertainment scenes. It is now considered a cult classic for its nostalgic icon and of the late 1990s television era, basically. So it was a great TV show, in my opinion.
There was a lot of bands, like local bands that would go on there. Like TISM, I remember, were a band that we didn't know much about TISM. No. TISM stands for This Is Serious, Mum.
Again, look those guys up. Pretty cool.
Yeah, there's some wild shit there. TISM's out of control. But I remember that being on there a lot. And there was lots of live acts, Jebediah and Silverchair.
Jebediah, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Great bands, great local bands. And they would have good interviews.
Yeah.
But
who were they competing against?
There was another show that would run on Saturday mornings on Channel 10 called Video Hits. Now, Video Hits was a long-running Australian music long-running Australian music television show that aired on Network 10 from 87 to 2011.
Whoa.
That's 24 years.
Yeah, right.
So 20 more years than Recovery. So you might think this is a bit unfair. But, hear me out. It was one of the country's most enduring music programs. That's fair. It had a music video countdown format. Now, we like a countdown, don't we, Chris?
We do like
we love a countdown. That's what Video Hits kind of was about. The show primarily featured a countdown of the most popular music videos in Australia based on chart rankings and was often compared to international counterparts like MTV and Top of the Pops. So it was kind of Australia's answer to those big shows or big channels. And it was on Saturday and Sunday mornings, but eventually just became Saturdays, I believe. It was a weekend staple for some people. The Sunday edition was basically just the top 40. So it was like a rehash of what was on the Saturday show, but just the top 40. Over the years, Video Hits had a rotating lineup of hosts. None of them you'd remember. There's Axel Whitehead, Fuzzy, and Virginia Lett. I do know who those people are, but if you aren't an Australian millennial, those people are absolute zeros. Even more zero than Chris and I.
Even more, yeah.
Right? Now, the show was hosted for most of its early years without presenters. Much better. relied on just voiceover intros and video transitions showing the clips, right? There were some live performances and interviews in the later years in the 2000s. Again, the artist interviews and live performances, that wasn't the start of it. They didn't do that for a long time. That had been done for a long time before that. But they did have the viewer interaction with contests, SMS, online phone things. Pay 87 cents a minute to call up and tell them your favourite P. Diddy song.
Baby, I was back, baby.
Baby, I was back. Family friendly, though, so there was no P. Diddy. It was family friendly, had mainstream appeal. Unlike Recovery, which we just talked about, it was more mainstream, right? So it featured the top 40 hits, like I said, across all the genres: pop, rock, hip hop, dance, broad family orientated material. Brought that kind of audience. The legacy of video hits is had a major influence on Australian pop culture, and it did, in the sense that it gave young kids access to top 40 music, and it was easily accessible, mainstream. It was a pre-YouTube kind of thing, right? So you had it before all the digital formats you do now. One of the ways that people could watch music clips regularly. If it wasn't on other shows that we'll get to, it was on Video Hits. If it was popular, it was on Video Hits. The show was cancelled in 2011, right? And that was due to the consumption of media and the way that people would listen to music, so online stuff, as you sort of touched on before. Its cancellation marked the end of a traditional music video programming on free-to-air TV in Australia.
It's a shame those programs disappeared, right?
We don't have them really anymore, do we?
They were pretty cool
anymore. So let's compare the two. Let's pit them against each other. We've given a summary. Go ahead with Recovery there, Chris. We've got a few key points here.
So features of Recovery. So it was out on the ABC, as we mentioned earlier.
Yep.
Years active. Again, there's only 4 years, 96 through to 2000. So it didn't have it was very short-lived. But again, really had a big presence in Australian TV. Broadcast time was Saturday mornings. It was a live show, as we mentioned, the format. So really targeted youth-orientated variety music show with performances, interviews, skits, that kind of thing. Host, of course, Dylan Lewis. I mean, no one else was worth mentioning, really. And the music focus was alternative, indie, and local music scene. Really.
Whereas, on the other hand, you had Video Hits on Channel 10 from 87 to 2011, that whole 24 years, Saturday and Sunday mornings, pre-recorded music videos, countdown-based chart rankings. There were those range of hosts I mentioned. It was mainstream top 40 stuff. But the audience was different.
It was, yeah.
Like, Recovery was looking at teens,
yeah. It was more commercial Video Hits, right? Like it was
definitely
tweenies and yeah.
It was a general public feel. It was kind of a this is what's on the radio. Yeah. Enjoy. And then Recovery was like following on the back of what was on stations like Triple J, and you would listen to that alternative music. And the fact they had live performances, I know Video Hits transitioned to that at later times. Towards us,
it laid that foundation,
and they were bands. Like when you say a live performance on Video Hits, it's a mimed act of a pop star pretending to sing their song to a studio audience, whereas Recovery had fucking real bands playing the song, and they would fuck up and be terrible. And sometimes you'd be like, "Oh well, Friends of Rom, they were shit."
Yeah,
but they're cool because they were shit, right? Yeah. And they would have like I remember in 99, I think it was, they'd have Courtney Love was on there from Hole, they'd have Marilyn Manson and international acts. And I know there was international acts on Video Hits, but again, they were just doing a mime act.
It was a watered down version.
I think so. So as far as a cultural impact, I think Recovery's probably bigger as far as youth culture.
Oh, 100% agree, yep.
And Video Hits was just a formula.
It was a formula. Try to apply to everyone, where Recovery was really focused on sort of, that, as you said, so more that
who gets your victory, Wibbles?
Oh, 100%. It's going to Recovery. 100%.
Yeah, I can't really fight
on that one. Video Hits, no.
I think it's a pretty clear-cut victory for Recovery. Look, that doesn't mean Video Hits was bad. I think Video Hits had its place being a family-friendly chart-based countdown show. I think what it did was it brought the videos of the popular songs to kids that wanted to see those. But if you wanted something a little more edgier, right? Mm-hmm. A little more, I don't know, fun, kind of quirky, Recovery was the way to go.
Ticket,
I think our victory goes to Recovery.
It does, yeah, I agree.
Victory Recovery. But before we finish this episode of Versus, I do have a couple of special mentions. Countdown and Rage.
Yeah.
Rage is, I think it's gone
legendary.
now, but everyone loved Rage. We grew up on Rage too. Kind of like Video Hits, Countdown type stuff. It was a similar thing. But Countdown and Rage, right? Let's have a quick summary of those. Countdown was a groundbreaking Australian music television show that aired in the ABC from 74 to 87. So we kind of missed Countdown, but it's the precursor to all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it played a pivotal role in shaping Australian music industry and youth culture at that time. Now, our parents' generation was more into Countdown, and it was hosted by Molly Meldrum.
Molly Meldrum, yeah.
Right? Who we would know better from Molly's melodrama on Hey Hey It's Saturday. Do yourself a favour. Cowboy hat. Molly's quite old now.
He is, yeah. He's getting right.
Hang in there, Molly.
Hang in, Molly.
Hang in there. He's been unwell as well, I believe. But look, Countdown had music video clips, interviews, and live performances, often mimed, but it was the start of that kind of thing. And it was instrumental in launching the careers of a lot of big Australian artists that we grew up with, like INXS, Kylie Minogue, Men at Work, John Farnham, Jimmy Barnes, or Cold Chisel. And it had a mix of like live show stuff mixed with like, you know, the film clips, much like Rage. And that brings us to Rage. Now, Rage, also an ABC program. Chris, you would have watched a shit ton of Rage.
I love Rage, yeah. I used to look forward to that. So, as I said before, Rage, short summary, so Rage is a legendary show in Australia here. So, it was a music television program that was aired on the ABC, as Sean mentioned, from 87, making it one of the longest running shows of its kind in the world. So it broadcast music videos all night long, essentially. All night long. Primarily on Friday and Saturday nights with minimal interruption. So there was no
back-to-back clips.
Back-to-back. It was just music just pumping out 24/7.
Yeah.
No host or commentary, just back-to-back clips, as we said. So on Saturday nights it features guest programmers. Remember those? So often artists or bands that would come in who would introduce and curate their favourite music or videos. So it was a little presentation where, for example, Red Hot Chili Peppers might be on, and they would give you a list of, hey, what was influential for you, and they'd give their list of songs.
Do you remember they'd always, when they'd come on to Rage, any of these international groups, I don't know if you remember, they'd always pull out their favourite Australian clips.
Oh, they'd always throw
a bunch of
there,
Australian. They'd always be like AC/DC or INXS.
There's always
you'd be like, dude, we know these ones. Like, can you put...
It's the only ones they knew, so they just threw them in. I think the programmer put it in there.
Yeah.
So it was known for its unfiltered presentation, deep dives into music genres, and support of both mainstream and underground artists. So it it was very eclectic, had this wide range of musicians on there. Rage has become a cult favourite, of course, and it was an important platform for Australian and international music.
Rage was great. Rage.
Yeah,
Everyone loved Rage.
Rage.
Shut up! Rage. That was the joke on.
You got to play that little clip there.
Yeah, we'll have to. But you see, there were all these programs, and then that sort of transitioned into music channels. Once Foxtel came about, and there was music
Andrew G. Into the Andrew G.
Channel V.
Channel V.
You remember Channel V?
Yeah, I used to froth on it.
It was an Australian music channel from 95 to 2016. It's gone. There was the Foxtel one, pop, rock, alternative. That was everything. And they had good live stuff on there as well. It was hosts. There was all kinds of stuff there. Again, it was a bit like Recovery. It was like an evolution from Recovery. So I like Channel V.
So did I. I loved it.
There was another one, Music Max. You used to love Music Max too.
That was older, more like 80s, I guess.
70s
80s,
even.
Yeah, 70s, 80s. Music Max was kind of more current, right?
Music Max was like I remember
Channel V.
Channel V was more current. Music Max was like the old school classic hits. It's funny because the stuff that was on Channel V when we watched it would now go on the Music Max, wouldn't it? Right?
100%.
And the last thing I wanted to touch on, not my cup of tea, but the Country Music Channel. Big one. They were on Foxtel from 04 only to 2020. Only 5 years ago they took away CMC. They used to have festivals. A CMC music festival is just a piss up, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
It's just a shit show, and everyone gets drunk and they go
go ride a ball.
It's all boot scooting, but you know what? They had a great time. And speaking of a great time, let's head to the tuck shop. Let's go get in line for a bit.
I'm hungry.